welcome, Jeanne, Bliss. I'm so happy to have you here with us for this short fireside chat today.
Yes, happy CX Day.
Happy CX Day. So, Jeanne, you are often affectionately referred to as the godmother of customer experience. You're also a 5 times Chief Customer Officer, a 4 times best-selling author, and a key architect of the customer experience movement. Can you please tell us a little bit about your background?
Sure, of course. And I'd love to also say one of the key architects, there's been so many people involved in this. We all kind of stand on the shoulders of each other. I started my work in 1983 and went to Land's End. My first job was training 2,000 phone operators on customer experience and service and the product. And then I went to Mazda Motor of America, where 3 of us held the very first role around architecting the Mazda experience, both at a customer level and a dealer level, B2B and B2C. After that, I wanted to lead a big part of the organization, so I went to Coldwell Banker Corporation. I was the first vice president of franchise services, B2B, and also the field operation. After that, I knew I needed big, and financial services, so I went to Allstate Corporation in the United States and was the first vice president of customer satisfaction and retention. And then I knew I needed technology, and so was at Microsoft, and I was the general manager of worldwide customer and partner loyalty. So in each of these roles, it was around doing that work of uniting the organization, doing the work of what a chief customer officer or customer experience officer would do. So in 2006, I felt a responsibility to write this down. And I took 2.5 months and took 25 years of files and thoughts and organized it into the first book called Chief Customer Officer 2.0. And that was it. Then it was like being shot out of a cannon. And I started doing a lot of keynoting, but mostly really coaching leaders and organizations around the world, trying to figure this stuff out.
Right. You're also the co-founder of the CXPA. So as we're celebrating the CX Day, I can't help but to start by asking you to go down the memory lane with me. How did CXPA come into being, and what was the big why for founding it?
Well, great partner in Bruce Temkin and his wife, Karen, and they had been thinking about the notion of why doesn't customer experience have its version of the American Medical Association. And so really have to credit Bruce and his wife for putting the nut of the idea into play. And he and I had been doing some great work together, partnering with different clients, etc. And so he and I got together and bootstrapped it. I mean, we were working probably 60-hour weeks just putting this thing together. And it was our gift, again, to try to create a community for many, many people who were working separately, to say, A, this is a real career path you can have. B, we're here for you. And C, we're going to create a community. And so we bootstrapped the very first event. I mean, he and I did everything. We schlepped food, we put things together, that's where the first, the sharing tables occurred. And we just kind of bootstrapped the whole thing. And then from there, we knew our responsibility was to continue to hand it off to others to continue to lead and make CXPA something that for everyone.
Mm-hmm. I remember having been one of the founding members. I was part of that first
You were with
event.
us in Boston.
Yes.
In that funny little hotel. Do you remember it? Oh my gosh.
It was a great event.
It was. I was so tired. I remember flying on a plane home that night because I was going back to the West Coast. It was a long flight, but I was so excited because we were really onto something.
Yeah, that's true. And well, 10 years later and so on.
Yes.
So COVID aside, is there anything you would change about what you had as a vision almost 10 years ago for CXPA and in today's world?
I think the biggest thing that we realize is the more we can get practitioners talking to each other, the better off they are, and also talking to each other in a free zone where they can share and be honest and open with each other. The other thing I think that's really emerging is the need for networking at multiple levels. So you have a CCO level, you have a frontline person leading the frontline, and then you have the folks doing the hard work in the middle, like the VOC programs and all of those things. And I think that we're getting better at recognizing that even within customer experience, there's many different people and roles. For me, the biggest thing I focus on is leadership and uniting the leadership team. And I would say that that to me continues to be probably the biggest gap that we see in the work, which we get into the tactics, or what I call the mechanics of the work. But if the champion leaves the building, the fear is the work leaves with them.
That's
So
true.
embedding the work as really a part of how a company grows, how leaders lead, is our responsibility, and really I think where our biggest opportunity is as well.
And it's also about creating playbooks for companies on how they then, if this one person does leave, that how do they succeed from their onwards, I suppose.
Well, and I think that also it's about leadership is consistent behaviors over and over again,
exactly.
and united behaviors. So if you have one leader running one part of the operation who's operating in one way and another one who's questioning it and operating in a different way, then the company doesn't really see it as this is how we are as a company and how we're going to grow and how we're going to drive direction and how we're going to unite and recognize our people. And so I think that beyond a playbook, it's also the behaviors of leaders that need to be embedded. And what we know is it's repetition and consistency and starting with the customer and employee's life. And that's where so many CX leaders have the opportunity, is to recognize that this behavior really has to show up. We have to prove it to our organizations with our leaders' behavior that this is what we're all about.
It's in your DNA, so to speak.
That's right. And you know, it's not always there naturally, but we can help it get there.
Yeah. What's the most remarkable example of customer centricity that in your practice during all this time that you have seen?
Well, you know, I have to harken back to a certain degree to my work at Land's End and the time in my life when I was there. It was, we were kind of the Zappos of our day. We started with guaranteed period. There was no reason why you couldn't return something. We were there 24/7. We trained the phone operators to be yourself, take your time. These were farm people that got up at 4 a.m. and hayed the fields and plucked eggs from the underbellies of warm hens and then logged in. And so honestly, without that experience, I couldn't do my work. I couldn't have gone across these 5 industries and worked with these other leaders, because we were led in a way that was what I talk about a lot, really balancing congruence of heart, what we know is right, and habit, how we led the business. And so we did, you know, crazy, wonderful things like when we found a flaw in 100,000 towels, before customers sent us QA problems, we sent out 100,000 towels and said, we're not sure if you have this problem. If you don't, here's another free towel. But if you do, use the messed up one to clean the dog or wash your car or whatever. And it was the proactiveness of who we are, who we were, even back then. We knew lifetime value in 1984. So all of the things that we fundamentally talk about now as, wow, those were things I learned as an infant in my career in doing this work. And so I have to say that was really the greatest gift of my life from a work standpoint.
Many organizations have now cut off or stopped their CX transformation and voice of customer programs due to this exceptional situation. Even laid off some of their customer experience personnel. So what's your take or your understanding on what's happening really in the customer experience ranks right now?
Well, I think that the reason those things occur is, first of all, if we're looking at it as a program, it's going to automatically be connected to a cost. Customers now more than ever need leaders to reach out to them in a very real way and understand their life versus, you don't have to spend the money on surveys. Just start having Zoom calls with groups of customers and get your leaders involved. Again, that absence of leadership, recognizing that it's their responsibility for leading, and recognizing that, what's interesting is how a company we will be remembered during this time is going to have everything to do with how fast, quickly, and robustly that company restores its financial position in the marketplace and with employees. And that's being lost. I think that the other thing, again, that I kind of knew we would be at risk at is sometimes CX has turned into its own silo. So we're doing the work and presenting the work, but without really uniting the organization that it's their work and they have to be a part of recognizing it. We're susceptible to being cut off or chopped. And so what I would suggest is start having these conversations where we bring customers in, talk to them, ask them about their goals, their frailties, what they need, and where you can play a part in that. And then we have to work our way back. I've always said that this work, you need to earn the right to continue to do this work. And I do feel badly, very, very badly for what's happening to some folks, but I would imagine that it's also happening in many, many disciplines around the organization. And when you look at the places that they're being cut, it's those places where leaders don't recognize that it's their responsibility.
True. What did you do yourself as a CX professional to sustain your practice during the COVID-19 pandemic, or where it is, where we are currently as well? And what has been your source of inspiration and motivation?
Well, it was interesting because right after it happened, it was even difficult to focus on work. And so instead, I wanted to give. And that's when I really started doing the LinkedIn Live conversations that I had with people. Initially, they weren't practitioners because we were all deer in the headlights, right? Well, how do we take care of our people? How do we make sure our kids are okay? And so I interviewed Tom Peters. Oh, we had the most wonderful conversation. Seth Godin, Guy Kawasaki, wonderful leaders around the world who were inspirational. And that was joyous for me and for them. It was so wonderful. For example, Tom Peters had never done a LinkedIn Live. And so, here is a person that we've all looked up to. I was like, could hardly speak. And so we did 3 or 4 prep calls with him. And so I got to know him. It was lovely. I re-interviewed Horst Schulze, the man we all know for giving us the Ritz-Carlton and learning to lead from a Ritz-Carlton standpoint. And so that helped a lot. And then in the last month or so, we've started invigorating the conversations with leaders leading the work. And so that's been fantastic as well. But, like everybody, binge watching, cooking, we're in the Pacific Northwest. You can see the beautiful. So we've been taking a lot of walks, and my husband and I got electric bikes. So we've been riding around, but it's been interesting for everyone.
If we go back to the concrete actions,
Yes.
What about your customers? What have they done to cope with COVID? Do you have any examples that everyone could take an example from or learn from that you could share with us?
Of course, yes. So as I've been coaching other leaders, chief customer officers in the C-suite in companies, that we've been doing this thing I call fearless listening. We are putting CEOs on couches in sweaters or sweats or whatever, and bringing in 3 or 4 leadership group people and 10 to 15 customers. Before we do that, we actually have flipped from building a journey map to a goal map. So redefining the customer's life from their goals now, stay healthy, make more, don't go broke, it's shifted so dramatically. And so now we're having these really fascinating conversations with customers saying, how can we be a part of these goals that you're having now? We've built what I call know it, build it, live it, meaning so much of the work is missing what is our purpose in improving lives? How do we want to be defined as people? And so we're taking the opportunity where people are leading with their humanity more now to go back and redefine the organization. from that standpoint. And then we're putting the guardrails into the operating model of, if you want to show up as trustworthy, read every single document you have, recognize where you're not trusting your people. And so we're doing an emotion audit and an outcome audit against the behaviors of the organization. Instead of process mapping, we're starting with, how do we want to be described? And what are the goals we need to make sure the customer says that they can achieve with us? And that is so interesting, because now this time of COVID professionally has become a weird gift, because people are open to doing this kind of work that they haven't done before.
Have companies been thinking their purpose over because of the situation?
That's the whole, know it. How do we want to show up? What's our purpose in improving lives? Why are we here? How do, and when I do it with clients and companies, it's not just our purpose, it's how do we want to be described as people? And again, re-architecting, building a goal map again versus a journey map. Inadvertently, a journey map can be what you want to get from customers, right? Prospect, sell, conquest, resell, cross-sell, versus what customers are trying to achieve. And that is also culturally shifting. The other thing that I think is important is take a look at your surveys right now. They may not be appropriate. You know, you don't want to sound tone deaf and ask customers to validate how well you're doing versus asking them what they need.
How do you calm down people during COVID, both employees and customers?
Well, the thing about employees is we need to really bring them along on the journey from a communication standpoint and be as transparent. I hate that word because it sounds like a buzzword now. Fearlessly open. If you don't tell your employees what's happening with the business, where it is financially, how many of your customers have come or lost, they're going to fill in the holes. And as they fill in the gaps, that black hole is going to create fear, worry, concern. And so we need to take care of our employees right now, especially so that they can take care of customers. So what we're encouraging, you know, what's interesting is at the beginning of COVID, all these grassroots conversations were happening. They need to continue. They really must continue. And then in terms of customers, focus more than ever is critical. Try to really bring the silos together and focus on a few things that mean the greatest value and will impact your customer's life right now. Because again, memory and their memory of who you were as people and how you adjusted to the world is what's going to decide if they come back to you or not, if they recommend other people to you, and or if they find a better partner elsewhere, because people are making value decisions right now.
That's true. You talk also a lot about earning the right to customer-driven growth, and how the most beloved companies are rooted in trust. Can you please elaborate on this idea a little bit?
Absolutely. You know, every relationship between a company and a customer begins because we as customers choose to trust a company, right? We trust doctors to take care of us. We trust real estate people to find us a home. We trust, you know, our financial services industries to help us prepare and care for our, you know, our lives and our children, etc. But as you look at how companies treat customers, is that reciprocated? And so I think that our responsibility is to do a trust audit. Go across every part of your customer's goal map where they're trying to accomplish something and recognize and evaluate if it's truly a partnership, or is there anything one-sided? And what's interesting is if you build that kind of relationship, for example, you know, Southwest has earned the right to a trusted relationship. So when times are not, you know, they've had their glitches just like everybody else, nobody's perfect. But when bad things happen or challenges happen, if you've built your foundation based on trust, then the opportunity is going to be, okay, we know really who they are. And everybody, they're working on my yard out here. So I apologize. You'll hear some banging every once in a while. Welcome to the world of COVID.
Okay. What do you think would be the next best action for companies? Getting rid of all of their CX related personnel and capabilities does not sound to me like a good plan for the future of these companies.
No, but I do think we need to, in the very first chapter of the Chief Customer Officer 2.0 book, I talk about uniting the C-suite. We need to bring the C-suite together and build one version of the truth of what we're delivering today. Part of what makes us less effective is that each part of the C-suite has an ability to look at what we're doing and evaluate if it's good for them, versus bringing the C-suite together and have them look at, as an entire organization, are we delivering what's right for customers? We put ourselves in the position of being evaluated versus our role, which is to unite so they can evaluate one company-wise how we are doing in delivering value.
What do you think a CX leader who's currently right now fighting with their fellow management team members or board of directors about their budgets, what should they do to convince everyone else of the importance of investing in CX in this time and looking at the long run?
I think like everybody else inside the organization, there has to be focus. One of the things I always encourage people to do is what I call customer math. If you haven't done the math around customers as assets, then you really haven't built the case for why we're doing this work. The point of our work is about growth. And so if you're not connecting it to growth, then again, people are going to evaluate one program over another. This work is about, as a result of the experience we all delivered, did we earn the right to grow? Did we bring in more customers than we lost?
How will the concept of customer centricity change around the world in the next year?
You know, I think about it, what my work that I do is we need to connect it to growth. So I like to call it customer-driven growth. Customer centricity can be debated as we want to give everything to the customer. We want to deliver wow moments. For me, our work is to be a strategic leader, uniting the leadership team and helping them recognize what we have to do as an organization in our operations, in our behaviors, in our leadership, and in how we enable our people to deliver value so we earn the right to grow, so that our growth plan comes from earning greater customer advocacy. And so, you know, I think about your work not as a CX leader, but as a chief growth officer. You know, CX is one of the tools in our arsenal, but the work is about growth.
We were sort of forcefully whisked into the future this spring. How do you see what's coming up next for the CX profession?
You know, I think, again, this is an opportunity to make our work about leadership, about leading an organization, about uniting the leaders of the company and focusing. So much of our opportunity and the greatness of our work is bringing the organization together to see the perspective that cannot be seen silo by silo. So realize that is your superpower. Your superpower is creating a holistic perspective, but then leading the organization to focus on the few things that will have the greatest impact. If you can articulate that and connect that, then there won't be a reason why your work isn't important.
What are the challenges that we should all be ready for?
You know, I think that customers are going to make decisions coming up about their spend. We're seeing it already in every kind of industry. Part of our work has got to be to get out ahead of those questions to prove the value that we've delivered. And so for me, that's where the real work is, uniting the organization, understanding the vulnerability spots along our customers' goals, and bringing people together to be proactive. So this proactivity is really important. So, you know, it's less about doing a survey or VOC, but more about, and you can use VOC to understand these points, but recognize that we need to focus on the outcomes, which is where are we vulnerable in earning these customers' confidence, their peace of mind, and their ability to attach the work we do with them to the goals they need to achieve.
What would you say would be the new skills that we all need to learn? And since speed is of essence right now, how can we accelerate our learning?
Well, I think the biggest thing is prioritization. We tend to want to do everything, And we also tend to create a proliferation of what I call splinter projects that come from every silo, looking at the dashboard and figuring out what they're going to work on. And I think that's why the CEOs of companies are getting exhausted a little bit by saying, look, we've had 100 projects on the docket, but we're not getting better feedback from the customer. And a lot of that has to do with, because these are splinter projects, but not a united one company approach to say, our customer's biggest goal right now is X. Let's look at the 50 things that are working on that separately, unite it and pick it and bring us together. If we emerge as the uniter, the people who remove duplication, the people who connect what we're going to do to growth and value and goals and value creation, then we're going to continue to have a place. It doesn't matter what you're called. CEOs and leaders and boards make decisions about contribution based on the outcome and based on what it does for the entity of the organization, what it does for their culture, and what it does in terms of helping the organization earn growth. And I think that we have to recognize that lens is going to be even stronger and tighter and more disciplined as leaders evaluate what they're going to do.
What about the international potential of our profession? How can we become a truly global community?
Well, you know, in many ways, I think we already are a global community. I've never seen so many wonderful people from all around the world reach out. We have conversations. I'm having conversations at 3 and 4 in the morning with people. But I think the biggest thing is trusting each other. I've always had a theory, a thought that none of us are competing with one another. We all raise the water level by coming together and doing the work. So I think that as much as we continue to band together, recognize that we have a common purpose and help each other out, you know, be free and share, which is so much of, you know, why we created the CXPA, why CX Day exists. We need to have a foundation of trust among each other as well, so that we see value in this community and in this work.
And so we are also grateful for you for having co-founded CXPA, because it's been very important part of our lives ever since.
Thank you to Bruce, of course, who brought me into this as well. Yeah. It's been a wonderful, wonderful journey.
Yes. Thank you so much for having this discussion with me, and have a nice, really, really nice CX Day.
Thank you. Same to you. And thanks everybody. Have a great, great day. Stay safe.